The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Welcome to Moments of Strength. I'm your host, Mary Kaufman. In this show, we dive deep into the lives of mothers' unique journeys of parenting and personal growth. From juggling family dynamics to personal passions and career ambitions, we'll talk about challenges, triumphs, and pivotal moments that shape their lives, emphasizing the resilience and strength that comes with motherhood. Thank you for joining us. Today's guests are Rose and Mikayla.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for coming. So you're my first mother-daughter team to have on. Well, mother-daughter and also a mother. So I'm excited to have this dynamic on here and talk to you a little bit about your journey to motherhood and your personal and professional career ambitions, which ended up aligning, it seems, in your business. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then if you've seen the show, the aim of the show is really to provide strategies, stories, life experiences so that other mothers don't feel alone, that we feel more like a community, and people who are just coming into motherhood. You know, it feels like you always feel like you're the only one, that you have to invent things, and that's not the case. And sometimes just hearing stories of other moms is encouraging and supportive. So that's really the aim of the show, and we'll do that today with your stories.
Perfect.
Okay, so first, let's have you introduce yourselves and maybe say who you are and then a little bit about your background, how you grew up, anything you want to share from that, so we have some backstory as you talk about where you've gone as an adult. So, Rose, would you like to start?
Sure. So I'm Rose Friedel. I'm a realtor here in town with my daughter, Mikayla. I grew up in a small southwest Wisconsin town. I'm the youngest of 6.
Oh.
So my mother was a saint.
Yes.
My older siblings kind of helped raise me. I always felt like that was a huge benefit because as a young child, you know, my parents were sick of having kids around the house, right? This was 60s into the 70s and early 80s. And so I got to go spend a lot of time with my older siblings because they were grown and married and with kids. So that was a lot of fun. Came to Madison, went to school, met my husband. He's a Sun Prairie person, and we moved here, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm moving to his hometown. I love it. I absolutely love Sun Prairie. He teases me that I'm more involved than he is, but I know more people, but that's okay. Have 3 children. We actually lost a little boy who passed away. He was our second child, and so he's our little guardian angel, Casey. So, you know, when that happens, you don't take anything for granted. You don't take pregnancies for granted. So the other 2 were high risk. The girls were high risk, and she was a geriatric pregnancy as well then too. So, you know. I know I'm jumping ahead, but
that's okay.
I just feel like when they were all little, it's just a fog, and you just gotta kind of get through the fog, and little by little, and they'll
one
ask
day at a
me
time.
Stuff. Yeah, they'll ask me stuff, and some things I remember, and some things I've just blocked.
Sure, I feel like that too.
Yeah.
It's especially when kids are very little, you're so much in the moment.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know that they're going to ask, what was my first word? It's like, I hope someone else was in the room.
Well, the first one you remember.
Do you? So, you know, there are things that happen when they're little that, you know, as you're parenting, and if you have more than one child too, just so much is going on, and you feel like you're trying to survive the day. So, so you're right. To some degree, that is a fog, especially when you go back and try to remember those details. So your siblings, you're the youngest of 6, and can I ask what that age span is?
It's 15 years between the oldest and I.
Yeah. So I have a sister that's 15 years younger than me too, so I'm familiar. And as she got older, it seemed like that age gap was much less because, as an adult, you really can just be more peers. But fun when you're little to have so many people who are older than you that care about you, want to spend time with you. And
you learn to, I never slept in my bedroom on the weekends because you always had to sleep on the couch because they were coming home.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Or, they were coming home with their husband or wife or whatever, so you always got chucked to the couch. So you get to be a little more flexible,
I think so. You're right. We talk a lot on here about how the things that are imposed on you when you're little or even that you choose, you can, if you pull the thread, can find out how those affect you and the choices you make when you're older too. So interesting. Okay, and so Mikayla, a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Sun Prairie, youngest of 3. I never really left town. Met my husband early on in high school. Been together ever since. We both went to school in Madison and bought a house a couple years out of high school in Wyocena.
Okay.
So we moved there for a few years till we could afford a house in Sun Prairie and moved back. And I have a 2-year-old daughter, Anna. So yeah, I have 2 dogs. We live in Sun Prairie and work with my mom.
Yeah, so your journey into your professional career really came from just being raised by your mom, who
kind of
also is in that, or how did that journey work?
It was, so I went to school to be an occupational therapy assistant. Did that for 2 years out of college, then COVID hit.
Oh, yes.
And working with the pediatric population during COVID over Zoom was not really what I always dreamed of.
Man, how does that even, can you give a little, so my last guest actually was a nurse. She explained her experience as a nurse in COVID in the hospitals as a traveling nurse. That was so interesting too. But just to understand how people navigated life during that time, we collectively were doing the same thing in lockdown, but individually we were all having these sort of wild experiences. So can you talk a little bit about just that? Because that would affect, how you ended up here.
Yeah, definitely. I worked for a private practice. So March whatever hit, and we all got sent home with our computers. And, I had a caseload of about 20 kids that I was supposed to see every week, and the amount of those kids that were kind of families willing and able to participate. There's a lot behind it. These kids are sitting at home with their parents 24/7, and everyone's overwhelmed, and parents are trying to work from home, and kind of the last thing anyone is wanting to do is get their kid to sit in front of a computer with their therapist for an hour.
For an hour.
Yeah, we kind of played around with it, but it was hard to kind of keep up with the numbers and trying to bill what I was supposed to bill. Companies were just trying to survive, right?
For sure.
So August of that year, I decided to kind of take a jump and do special education in the schools.
Okay.
Which again was virtual for, I think, the first half of that school year. Then the kids slowly came back. A lot of my students came back sooner because they had higher needs.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Tried that for about a year and a half, and just kind of hit a point that I'm like, I'm not with that job, you can't necessarily grow your family because I'm, with special education, sometimes you're getting, I was getting hit and stuff a lot.
Oh, sure.
And I'm like, well, I can't really do this job pregnant. And it doesn't really pay well enough for me to send my kid to daycare. And So I was kind of going back and forth on whether or not I should go back to school to become a teacher. And then I realized, hey, real estate sounds kind of fun.
Hold on a second. My mom has this business.
It's a great gig going on.
Can we go to lunch? I need to talk to you. Yeah. Like, okay.
So I figured, well, I wouldn't have to go back to school, just do some training, and it's easier to, so I figured I'll try it for a year or so and see how I like it, and it's been great.
How long have the two of you been working together?
Almost 4 years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you came on the show
great.
together, so I feel like it's probably going okay.
Yeah, we're stuck. She's stuck with me now.
Same.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just talking about, your choices, and we talk about them so easily now, but when you're in those positions and you're thinking, I'm in this position, I'm giving, to the kids of other families, and that's so important because we need that, and especially at school too. And then you combine all of that with the fact that COVID and nobody really knew what to do. I mean, everybody was sort of fumbling through to figure out what are the processes going to be. Special education, there's a physical aspect to it often, and considering that for yourself and your child and what's that going to be like going forward, and weighing all of that out, it's a lot. And so it's just interesting here. We tell the story, we don't tell all the emotional details of what it was like to choose that, because those are hard choices, So you're fortunate to have had this unfold and help you out.
We both are.
Yeah. So what was your path to get into this business?
My background is interior design.
Okay.
But in the early 80s, nobody wanted to hire somebody out of college to tell them how to
Oh, right, because
design
what
their
did you
house,
know?
Right.
Right, yeah.
And I get that. So I did a couple different jobs. Then I kind of got into accounting, which that was fun too. I enjoyed that, which is totally weird. It's so different.
Very different.
And then when we knew we were going to have her, I quit work with 3 kids in daycare. It was not going to, be beneficial.
Right.
In those days, you didn't have paid time off, things like that. So I stayed home for about 6 years. The kids went to Sacred Hearts here in Sun Prairie. So my friends that I went to college with would always say, you're a stay-at-home mom, but you're never at home. That goes volunteering.
Right.
Which was fun. And that was a great segue, because it's really hard to be working and then not.
Yes.
Because you just feel like you're on an island by yourself. But it was a great community, and that helped a lot. The play groups and things like that. So the kids loved that. Me too. My husband was a builder in town. He couldn't get other realtors to do open houses.
Okay.
And as a builder's wife, I could do the open houses, and I thought, he can stay home with the kids.
Yeah.
And I can go, I don't care if anybody comes, I can have a few minutes to myself.
Right.
And then I started, selling these houses, and I thought, okay, I might as well get my license.
So
So,
you're doing it anyway,
Yep.
so you might as well.
That was 22 years ago,
Wow.
23 years ago.
It's a lot of houses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's been fun.
So you talked about going from working to not working. I've also done that. It is can be. It's not for everybody a difficult transition, but it can be. And I remember feeling like you're not getting a performance review in like the same way. It's like a daily feedback, and you're probably doing it wrong, according to your child. So, yeah, I think doing that can feel isolating, and you're doing very important work by spending time with your kids and raising them. But, when they're infants and toddlers, they're not having sort of these mature adult conversations with you, and we all need that to some degree. So seeking out those play groups. Were you home for a while before you pursued something like that? Like you just realized, like, help?
I think so, because I was pregnant, so I'm in high risk, so I'm doing a lot of appointments, and trying to juggle getting one to kindergarten, which was still half day.
Oh, right.
And then taking one with me to doctor's appointments, and And then connecting with moms after school on the playground. And then we kind of went, okay, we're all in this, there was probably 3 or 4 of us that were all in the same boat.
Right.
They weren't pregnant though. So, but that was a great group to help out with. And that, we still maintain a lot of friendship.
I was going to ask, are you still connected
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
those people still living here? So.
Yep.
So yeah, the play groups I think are so important, or just having some connection to something on the outside.
Because it's such a different world than, because most of your connections are through your work or your, your hobbies that, are all done at night, or, just the changes. So it was a difficult time, and husbands don't get it.
It's, we don't want to generalize, but there are many people in that position that just don't understand.
No.
Well, and if you haven't done it, and even, there's sometimes moms that work, for like a traditional job, or just go into work and work for somebody else. And then there are stay-at-home moms, and then there are moms that work for themselves. And I think there are just varying degrees of difficulty for all of those positions. And I think sometimes, we're coming out of this really, but for a while it was like if you're a working mom versus a stay-at-home mom, and stigmas and things like that. But
I think
there's enough. Yeah, there's enough even videos people make about what it's like, to stay home versus what it's like to go to work. And I've done both, you've done both. They equally have their challenges. But, if your spouse hasn't done that, it would be difficult for them to understand firsthand. So, so to even explain that at the end of the day to somebody who doesn't have the frame of reference because they haven't done it, that's difficult, So it's a challenge of its own. And I think even now the expectations for moms are very high, and we're just expected to do a lot all of the time.
And grandparents too, grandmothers too.
And grandmothers, and you're a grandmother.
Yes.
Yeah, so actually talk a little bit about what that's like, because, your kids are older now.
Right.
So.
Well, 33, 30, and 27. Yeah.
So.
Which is weird. It just happened. I don't know.
It does. Because you're obviously not old enough to have kids those ages.
I still think of her as Anna's age.
Yeah.
But obviously she's not.
It's hard to move out of that as a mom.
It is. It's fun. Our oldest grandchild is 10, and he is awesome. My other daughter is a single mom. We kind of helped a lot. In fact, he's told Mikayla that she's his favorite parent.
Oh.
Years ago.
Congratulations.
Younger.
Yeah. But we were very involved. And then all 3 kids had babies within 8 months.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fun.
Oh, it is. But it's, try having 3 pregnant women in your family.
Yeah.
Trying to keep track of how everybody's, and new babies, making sure everybody's okay. Just worrying. More worries, but they are so fun. They're so fun, and when they love each other, love to be together.
They FaceTime all the time.
Oh, that's awesome! Yeah. And are all 3 kids here locally?
Close.
Okay.
The 2 are in Sun Prairie, one's in Oconomowoc, so we get to see them a lot.
Close. Yeah, cousins. Just grow up together.
All
and
the
that'd
cousins.
be so fun. Yeah. So, okay. So, can we talk a little bit about let's go back a little bit. I mentioned before, things that happen and how you grow up when you're young, and then how those things resurface, when you're an adult. Are there things about the way you grew up, maybe being the youngest of 6, or where you grew up, that you think have influenced you, either in your professional pursuit? I mean, we heard how you sort of grew into that with your husband. Right. But even being able to sell homes or anything like that, from where you grew up, birth order, maybe your parents' parenting style, or things that you chose to do as a kid, maybe sports or music or something like that.
We were all involved in music, some sports, but love my mom and dad dearly, and they're both gone, but they did not encourage the girls to do anything beyond high school.
And how many? We didn't talk about how many boys and girls were there.
So it was girl, boy, girl, girl, boy, girl. I was supposed to break that and be the boy, but that didn't happen, obviously. Seriously. And I was supposed to be born on my dad's birthday, and I didn't do that either. So
Coming
just
out
straight
swinging.
coming out.
Yeah.
But so my dad had a small business, which I learned a lot about, being in a small community and having a small business. And my mom was very involved in church. So the volunteer, I feel like my community involvement and my volunteering comes from my parents. Because I was drug along to help and everything. But
Sounds familiar.
I knew that was coming. But building a business, I think that's how I built my business, was being involved in the community and getting to know a lot of people. And just, you can't just be involved to be involved either. You have to care about what you're doing.
Sure, yeah.
And trying to make, and my mom always said, if you train or teach your kids by what you're doing in volunteering, they'll get the hang of it too. So
Right.
she's getting there. The other two, hopefully there's hope for them. Hopefully they're not watching.
Wow.
So your dad owned a small business, so now you own your own business. So
Right.
there's some parallels there. And the girls were not encouraged to do things beyond high school. Were they? I mean, was there a thought that like you would just be married and have kids then?
Probably.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of typical.
The older three weren't even allowed to get their driver's license.
Oh,
But again, they were
sign of the times,
right
to some
right,
degree.
right. Because I mean, my siblings are all in their 70s. So other than one, so
Yeah, so they were even teenagers way before
right,
you were, and
right.
so that was even longer ago.
Yeah.
So discourage that,
So
or
I
just maybe not encourage it.
Yeah.
You know.
And I know this sounds surprising for me, but I just said, I'm getting my driver's license. And they were like, oh, okay.
Your sisters are probably like, that's all I had to.
Wow.
I just could have said that.
Get lenient the more kids you have.
Yeah,
You
they were
definitely. This is true.
Yes.
Yes,
yes.
this is true.
Yes. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, but also that is, maybe part of who you are, because you did that with your license. Well, then you saw what was happening with your husband's business. So you're like, well, I'll just get my
Right.
license
Right.
for realty and do that too.
Yeah.
So some of that's maybe at the core of who you are.
Yeah, and to do the initiative to go to college, and leave the small town and go to Madison. My parents didn't even take me to school. Now that would be unheard of,
Oh, for sure.
right?
Yes.
I mean, it was a whole family event when Cody went to Platteville. The
Yes.
whole family went.
Sometimes
But-
extended family.
Oh, sure,
and
sure.
all.
But
Yeah.
no, I went with my girlfriends, and I think one of the parents came with all of our stuff. But yeah.
But
so-
that was fun though. Actually,
was.
also.
Yeah, we had no idea where to go. We knew where our apartment was. We kind of knew where school was. We had no cars.
Right.
Had a part-time job. I knew I went. Yeah, it was a whole different world. You wouldn't do that now, but
Well, there's just so much information available.
yeah,
So
right.
I even was thinking the other day about, because I went to school down in Iowa for my first degree, and we came to Madison for a concert. And I was just thinking about, like, how did we get here? I mean, we had to use like an actual map.
Oh,
and then
sure.
find the buildings, and that is
Sure.
so foreign now, because
Right.
someone just tells you exactly every move to make, and
Yeah.
that is very different. Yeah. So you encourage your girls, though.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So what do you think? Why do you think you do that? This also is not a therapy session, but I'm just always curious about, how did that change for you to want to be someone who encouraged your kids, when somebody didn't maybe encourage you in the same way?
Just to, I always, there's a saying that says you raise strong individuals and then you have to deal with it, right? In a good way and bad ways, but you raise them to be strong individuals, and then they're going to be strong to you too. So you got to deal with that.
Oh,
But,
for sure. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it was planned.
Right.
That wasn't planned, but I guess we always made them aware of opportunities, which growing up in a very small town, you don't get. Sun Prairie offered a lot for sports, for music, for extracurriculars, and
Yeah, so offer and encourage.
Yeah.
And how was that
Expose
for you,
them to
Mikayla?
what they can.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like, because a lot of times as moms, we have intentions and we're communicating and we feel like we're parenting in a certain way, and
They see it
that's
totally
not always,
different.
that's not always how it's seen or felt, or this happens, every other day. I think I'm communicating something, and when it's said back to me, I'm like, that is not, what did I even say? And that's really on me, because I should understand how my child communicates.
Yeah, it was I was a great student, very involved in high school, and probably more so from my dad, but it was very much expected that I go to a 4-year school.
Oh yeah, he really.
It even like kind of drove us apart for a little bit, because I mean, I've been with my husband since I was 14 years old, and I wasn't opposed to it. I thought about nursing. I thought about going to school to be a PA.
Oh, sure.
But in the end, I'm like, they get treated horribly. Why would I want to do that? And it got to the point where I'm like, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not going to go to school and sit around and waste money not knowing what I want to do.
Sure.
And that was very hard for probably both of you, more so him. Because in his mind, I had almost a 4.0 grade point average, and I was involved in all this stuff, and why would I not? Why would I not do this? But to me, I'm very much, I want to plan, I want to know what's coming next, and and not going to a school and spending thousands and thousands of dollars a year to hopefully find my passion, when I actually ended up having 2 pretty major concussions the summer between my junior and senior year of high school from water skiing, and ended up learning a lot about occupational and physical therapy during that time.
What happens when you're young.
And so, again, I wasn't opposed to going for my doctorate in either one, I guess. But I'm like, if I can make decent money and try it out and see, make sure I like it with an associate's degree, well, I'm going to do that first.
Right.
Clearly that was a good idea, because it, I don't dislike the profession at all. I love it.
Sure.
But isn't necessarily right for me to be doing full time. So he's better now, but it was a little cold at the Friedel household for about a year there, because
it is hard. And just speak from experience, I always, I love school. I went to school out of high school because that also was the expectation. But I'm, much older than you, but that same thought process like your dad had, it's like I've always just said to the kids, even when they were little, they're like, so after high school, do you have to go to college? And I'm like, in this house we do. Like even when they were little, I'm like, in this house we do.
Exactly what,
so,
too.
But I will say, now that my oldest has left for school and I'm watching her navigate that, man, I don't know. I mean, I really believe in school for me. And I really believe my siblings, we all have advanced degrees, and my parents too. And my kids are good at school, and they're smart. And I feel like that's a match for what they have potentially going on in their brains.
Right.
But lifestyle-wise, and the things that they're drawn to, and the things that they maybe excel at or enjoy in life, man, I don't know. I want to make them do it. It's really up to them. I'm learning, and even watching, my daughter navigate this too. I want them to have the education, because I think it's valuable to know things.
Right.
Am I starting to realize you don't necessarily have to go to an organized institution to learn things?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And is that for everybody? For sure not. And just like you said, you're a planner, so you're different than maybe how your parents would do something. And to be sort of brave enough to say, listen, like, I love you and I appreciate everything, but it's not what I'm doing. That's so hard. And then for the family to be able to accept that, you know, don't you think? Like, that is difficult for families because it takes humility, you know, and that's hard. It takes humility to say, like, okay, you know, I'm going to step back and try to understand this from your perspective. And I don't think it has to be about being right and wrong.
No,
just
seeing a different side.
Yeah.
Well, and you think about, you know, here's these kids that have grown up in a comfortable house, you know, their own bedroom, mom and dad are there, food is, you know, everything is kind of at their disposal, right?
Sure.
And then they go to college and they're, you know, in a dorm, they have to share a bathroom, you know, take all the, you know, it's just such a different lifestyle. And you just think, you just send them and you expect them to do okay.
It's
well,
weird.
that's crazy.
I know. Well, and when you went to school, I mean, your parents didn't take you. You were there.
Yeah.
When I went to school, my parents dropped me off, but they left and went back to where they live in a different state. And you had to pay to actually call and talk to somebody. So you were removed from your environment. And watching this now, and I know how the world is, but I can't decide if what's preferable, because when you go to college now, you still have one foot in your old life, and you can watch what's happening. Everybody is posting, you know, everything's real time. Plus, you're navigating the new environment. Plus, you're trying to make new relationships. Plus, you can talk to you can FaceTime your mom all day.
Right.
She doesn't do that, but you know, we do talk a lot. We have talked more since she left than I ever talked to my entire extended family.
Oh, sure.
I had a brother in the same town, and I still talk to her more since she left, which I love. I mean, I love that as her mom. But sometimes I think, you know, that makes it more difficult because you're trying to still manage your old life, your new life, all the things coming at you. And so, yeah, that's just a different... Also, she was not thrilled with the shower situation because that's community shower when you've grown up, and everybody doesn't grow up like that.
I know.
You know? So that's really not even a problem, but you know, just it's something that she noticed. So yeah. So and going into motherhood now, same thing. You know, it's like you've got your mom there. You work with your mom. You know,
Thankfully, especially when you're pregnant.
You've got your mom sitting next to you telling you you're thankful for, you know, but like, and then you have your daughter and she'll grow up with you and your mom, hopefully. And it's just, there are a lot of pros to how connected we can be too. But you're right, when you have to send them off now, because we're so used to having you so connected and close, that is difficult too. I don't know. I think when we went to school, it was like, nothing I can do now. You know, I left him there, like, hopefully it's good. Yeah, that's so different now. So your daughter is 2. So what kind of, like, how do you think about parenting her? Like, what do you see for her? Are you mostly in the moment? I mean, when you're really up to age 5, you're like, I'm just trying to get from my daycare to my appointment. But how has that been for you so far?
It's been good. I love it. She stayed home with me for the first, like, 7-8 months. She just came to work, and we had, like, a little bouncer and stuff in our office, and she was quiet. She was, like, 5 pounds, so she was
She's a peanut.
a little peanut, and she's very quiet. We'd just bring her in. She'd lay there and play.
Not anymore.
Not so much anymore, yeah. So about let's see, September of last year, she started at an in-home daycare and absolutely love it there. And so she does not come to work with us all that much anymore. Occasionally.
She's real comfortable there.
She loves it. Yeah, she knows where we hide the chocolate. And
we're like, well, we're Friedel family realtors, so you know she needs to be here.
Yeah,
right?
it's okay.
So if one of the other kids comes, it's you know it's the family thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's good.
So yeah, we have a fantastic daycare provider. She's an in-home and has small numbers and loves her to death. And yeah, it's just...
She's a very good mom.
Oh, look at
Thank you.
That's so sweet.
I don't know about that. Not this weekend, at least.
Stop.
Okay, so what do you think have been some of the biggest challenges? And I'm asking this, excuse me, because you're young mom and you're a new mom, essentially, when you think about how long kids live. Okay, so, 2 years feels like a lot, but it also is still pretty new. What do you think some of your biggest challenges have been moving into motherhood from, just taking care of yourself?
I guess the biggest challenge for me has been my health. When I was pregnant with Anna, I had hyperemesis gravidarum, which is essentially like morning sickness all day, every day, all the time. So was pretty much bedridden for 6-7 months during my pregnancy.
Oh my gosh.
Got IV fluids and that was really rough. So then she didn't get the nutrients, which is why she was so small.
I see.
And since then, I've developed a couple autoimmune diseases.
Oh my gosh.
And my thyroid removed. Just dealing with that, being as a mom, it's a whole new thing because I can be sick without a kid. That's no problem.
Sure.
I can take care of myself, but when you're taking care of somebody else, especially someone that wants to be on top of you all day, every day, it's a huge challenge. Luckily, my husband's very involved, and my mom takes her for surgeries and when I'm really sick and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's been a huge challenge.
That's a lot to deal with. I mean, that's not a typical journey into motherhood at all. So, yeah, for you to be doing all the things that you're doing and dealing with all of that, I think is a tribute to really what we're capable of doing, as parents, and then what you're called to do too, even just physically. And despite all of that, you still have to show up for your child, who on this long road for you, has not been able to care for herself. So of course, she wants to be, but she has to be near you,
Yeah, right.
And I talk a lot about, mental toughness and mental strength, and what is that thing that everybody experiencing that doesn't feel strong enough to get up the next day and care for their children. It's the state of the world sometimes. Right. So what is that thing that makes you do that? Like, how do you get up every day? Now today, might be different.
Yes.
But like when you're feeling like sick and low and just drained and you don't want to. So what for you makes you do that?
Anna, I guess. Yeah, she is the happiest little nugget, and
She is.
She has a concussion. She fell out of a shopping cart this weekend.
We did talk about that a little before,
We did,
so I'm not
yes.
having like
So,
this big
yes.
reaction because I did know,
She,
but yeah, that's
so
awful.
not my greatest parenting moment for sure, but she is like giggling and smiling, and she'll like stop and be like, "Mama, ow."
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, sweetie, I know," but she's so happy. And even when I feel like I'm doing an awful job and not giving her the attention she needs because I don't feel well or I'm working or whatever, she is like, couldn't care less. She is going to be happy and still wants to be next to me.
And she's good at playing on her own, and as long as you're
We're getting
close.
there. We're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you don't really have a choice. What, the toddler's in the next room and she's awake and crying, and when you open the door, she's gonna be happy to see you, and you do it.
Yeah.
But it definitely plays a part with, the idea of having more kids is probably not going to happen. With hyperemesis, there's a very high recurrence rate, like near 80%. And just thinking, again, it's one thing to do it when I don't have a toddler who needs me, but So probably not in the cards for us, but you know, there's certain things I can do, but again, there's sacrifices that you make too.
Definitely. I mean, 7 months of morning sickness is incredibly rough. My gosh. And then you didn't know that was going to happen. So you can go through that the one time, right? Because you're just figuring it out as it's happening. But now you know.
Right.
And so that definitely weighs in. And yeah, I mean, it can change the trajectory. Maybe you were a person who wanted, you know, handful of kids. And so now that same thing that gets you up every day, you know, you kind of have to turn to that to say like, okay, well, we're going to maybe at some point make a decision. We're just going to have one child. Now you have to deal with that to some degree and figure out what that means and what does your life look like now. And you kind of have to access that same, whatever that is, just pool of strength somewhere inside you to do that. So
we're lucky to, I mean, we talked about she has cousins that are nearby and very close to her age, and she's friends at daycare and stuff, and I think that's just going to have to be that, you know. It sucks being an only child, I know, but
But she doesn't
she's
know
got a
any
lot of
different.
love.
right.
Only children don't, you know, just like kids with a bunch of siblings don't know any different. So you grow up with what you know.
You do. And birth order, you know, if you're sixth or if you're first, that makes a huge difference. And you're right, you know what you know and what's presented to you as a child. So how you frame that up and, you know, the other opportunities and things that you provide for her will make all the difference in that. So yeah. So you have 2 sisters.
One sister, one brother.
One sister, one brother. Okay. And are you close with them?
Location-wise, no, we're relatively close for adult siblings.
I mean, you can't predict that either. You know, I mean, I have 2 of each. On
a daily basis, that might change, right?
Yeah.
But
Well, as the mom, you always want that to be,
right.
you know, you want it to be what it was when they were little and all of that. But as adults, that's difficult because you grow up and you learn one thing about how life is because that's what's happening to you, and your siblings learn something else, and everybody makes these choices, and you have opinions about those choices now, and then you have children, and those are your relatives, and what they decide can impact your children. I mean, it's just so complex and dynamic. So yeah, I have 2 of each siblings. None of them live here, you know, so they're peppered around, and I'm closer to some than others in different ways, you know. And talk to some a lot, and some not as much, but you know, we try to just accept each other for who we are and try to be close in ways that we can. And you know, my mother also is like, have you talked to, you know, because, and I do that with my children. It's, you want that so bad because you understand that at some point that will be who they have. And hopefully that works out, and sometimes personalities in life just don't allow that, you know, so, or allowed in limited ways.
So, and we lean on each other a lot as far as, you know, with the kids. We take care of each other, you know. Take care of each other's kids all the time. And
we've got a village.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's nice to have.
Yeah, that's awesome. And proximity is so important too, because when you don't have that, it's, I mean, if you want to go do something, good luck. Like who's gonna, especially like an overnight or, you know, a trip or something like that. So
they just come to Nana's house.
Yeah, this is so fortunate. I'm gonna start taking my kids there. No.
Sure, why not?
A village. Yeah, so that's great. Okay, so let's see. I want to make sure we cover the things. So childhood. You know, you grew up in a small town, you said, and Sun Prairie is bigger than that small town, right? Would you say things about growing up in a small town shaped how you behave here, either that you don't act like you did there, that this was new opportunities, you know? Do you think there was anything there that
I
sort of
still
shaped
look
who you
at
are?
Sun Prairie as a small town. I feel like it's always been a very welcoming city. It's never been cliquey, because we have a lot of people transitioning in and out of the city because of the proximity to Madison.
Of course.
With the capital, or with the government, all the insurance companies. We have a lot of people coming and going. I never felt like it was cliquey. I don't know. I knew I didn't want, I think when we started out, I didn't want my kids to go to a small school, but then there are a lot of advantages, especially sports-wise and things like that. But I'm not sure on that one.
Yeah, and it's not saying, should you like to live in a small town more, or is there something, a reason to not live there and to live here, but just, personal experience, and that can be, I didn't want my kids to go to a small school. I mean, I went to many schools growing up, and because my dad was in the military, and so I moved all over. And my son just asked me the other day something about school. We got on this discussion, and he's in 5th grade, and I just said to him, I couldn't tell you the names of the kids in my classes, kindergarten through 5th grade. I can remember 2 or 3 kids that sort of stuck out, or maybe they were there for the duration that I was at that school on that base. But teachers, and it's just gone, done. Like there's nothing. So of course, as a parent, I think, okay, well, that was my experience.
So you
is that what I want for my kids? And I don't think it's bad. I enjoyed that experience. But then I watch my kids, and they are growing up with some of the same kids, and they're these long-term friendships, and they really enjoy that. And so I'm seeing the other side of that. But of course that affects, the kinds of decisions. Now they've moved schools within the district because there are so many, or we've moved locations. So they've had an opportunity to make new friends and have new experiences, but it's nothing like mine. And I don't know that I wouldn't recommend doing it, because I had a great time, but my siblings might have different stories about how they experienced that. And
we've had clients that, are very concerned when their kids, and what we've generally found is that the kids are much more resilient than the parents.
Of course, yes.
And the kids adjust because they don't know anything else. And, it's a new thing, and it's exciting, and, they all worry about it. And I said, they're much more resilient than you are,
Well, we're born to have an adventure. Right. So when you're little, that's all the exploring you're doing. I mean, that's all innate to go have an adventure. And is it hard to change schools when you're in 3rd grade? Maybe a little bit, but everything's so transitional anyway when you're a child. So you don't really know. And then they have more friends anyway, because they'll see those kids in activities around the community or whatever. So we as parents sometimes feel like I don't want that for them, because we don't want that for us in that scenario. But they have they don't have any preconceived thing about that. So so I was just curious about whether or not there was anything there about that. Okay, so let's talk about your business a little bit, because we're in Sun Prairie now. This show, when it blows up and it goes global, people around the world might know about your business. But since we're here in Sun Prairie, and you have a business in Sun Prairie, let's talk a little bit about your business so people know what you do, what you offer. So you can, maybe not like a sales pitch, but just talk a little bit about what you do. We know some of the history. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, Rose. Right. And then Mikayla for the last 4 years. And so you're located here. You have an office here. Yep. Okay. Yep. And do you want to just talk a little bit about what you do, what you sell, how you? Yeah.
So we're a team. We work with First Weber here in our location is in Sun Prairie. We sell houses for the most part, some little commercial here and there, but mostly houses. And the difference, I guess, between us and most teams is we do everything together. So a lot of these bigger teams that you hear about kind of work as like an umbrella, like the team name, and then they all work separately.
Gotcha. Okay.
All of our transactions we do together, so we kind of you get kind of like a little 2-for-1 deal with us.
Yeah. So
to know.
interchangeable. So if you showed up, maybe you would show up
Right.
the next
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they know we're both on board with everything, which we didn't plan that. It just happened because I was training her or whatever. I was like, come on, let's do this, let's do that. And it works out really well for us to do that. She is awesome with the advertising part of it or the marketing part of it. I'm more of the contracts and just because when you're on your own, those are the things you have to do. And at the end of the day, do I really want to do a post on social media? No. And then she'd start, actually before she even started with me, she'd critique them. And then she said, can I just do them for you? Absolutely. Here, have at it.
Yeah.
So she does a lot of that, and we're fortunate. We have kind of we call it our real estate girl gang at the office, and we all support each other. We're not competitive with each other. We help each other, build each other up.
Good. Yeah.
In the business, and we do a lot of shared marketing. Or we come up with ideas and we all do it, or different pieces of it. So it's very fun. We're lucky.
And so if people want to find you after they watch this because they want to buy a house from you,
just Google Freidel Family Realtors. Freidel is Freidel.
Yes, we talked about those darn Germans.
Yes.
Can't spell. That's.
We have website, Facebook, all those things you'll find us on.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
We enjoy it. We really enjoy being part of the community too. Freidels have been around a long time in the area. And when you were asking earlier about how someone could improve their business or start a business, it's tough to get started in real estate. And people will come in, oh, it looks fun. We want to look at houses all day. I'm like, that's not what we do. But it's you got to find your niche and find where you're. I like the community involvement. She probably will eventually when she doesn't have all the.
Those toddlers take up a lot of time.
They sure do.
Right.
And that has to be where you go now. But yeah, eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've been lucky enough to do. I've been lucky enough to do a lot of volunteering. So I've enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah. That's good. So if somebody is watching this and sitting at home and like, man, I want to start my own business. I have this idea. Maybe it's realty or maybe it isn't. But they just feel, a lot of people feel, especially if, they work for somebody else for a long time or they've been just in the throes of motherhood, I mean, you really can just have your whole day revolve around that. One child or multiple or multiple children, it doesn't matter. Do you have any suggestions or advice for them on like what to do first? What if they're sitting there watching this and they want to do it? Do you have anything to say to them, or if they were asking you?
I don't know. I would probably say do some research.
Yeah, and I think find a mentor or find a company or whatever that's gonna support you how you need it.
Like if it's a store, like a niche store, or kind of go to stores and ask questions, or just find a mentor, or interview a lot of people to see what they did right or did wrong when they started. We aren't like we don't have small business loans or anything, but I know there's a lot of opportunities out there for people to do that. So that might be kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I think too, if you're interested in doing something like that, just take one step. Just do one
something.
thing. Like you said, talk to people, find a mentor, talk to people who are doing that.
Right.
Reach out. It's not hard to connect with people now.
Right.
Before there was all this opportunity to connect, you know, you might have to go and try to get on someone's calendar and like, are they even in there? But now, if you can even just watch what other people are doing, that's a first step, you know. Commit to doing just one thing, even this week, if you're home with, you know, kids and you feel overwhelmed. In 7 days, commit to doing just one small thing.
And I know in real estate, we're lucky that First Weber has a lot of education, which is why I went there. I like the continuing learning aspect of it, and always something new, and people to talk to. But
well, that really benefits them to educate the people working for them, because you're going to be more knowledgeable and more successful if you have that too. So, so that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as motherhood goes, any things you want to offer that maybe we didn't cover, just thinking about other moms at home, you know, maybe watching this, or, you know, maybe they're loving it and it's a great day, or maybe it's a really rough day, or, you know, anything that you want to say to them about anything before we go.
You warned us this was coming, but you didn't give us time to think about it.
I would say give yourself grace. No one's perfect. They don't come with a handbook.
Right.
You know, there are times you know, like we were talking about, you don't remember everything, but I do remember some nights of putting individual children to bed and thinking, I really did not do that child justice today, or you know, I could have done something a whole lot different. Give yourself grace, but maybe learn from your mistakes. I've had to do that, and you're all growing together. So, and same with grandparenthood too.
This is true.
Because
Mikayla,
you know you have to kind of not really bite your tongue, but you know your kids don't always want your advice.
No,
especially about parenting. Right?
Well, and they have to learn it too.
Right.
And you're there as a guide, but it's really hard not to take the baby and do it this way. You know, that's hard as a grandparent to not step in. But just like everything else in parenting, you know, we're here to provide the experience so our kids can grow into productive, positive members of society and raise their own kids, and that we want to help them do that. But it is hard to let that go and not meddle, you know.
Well, and my mom used to always, you know, you could ask for her advice and she wouldn't get upset if you didn't take her advice.
Right.
Which was great. So I do that. I try to do that. Hopefully I'm doing that. But also just to be their backups, you know, be there if they need a night out, or didn't I just tell you that you guys need a vacation?
A vacation, yeah. We went to Italy this fall.
Yay!
We did.
We did.
Not the husbands.
Well, that's one way to do it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yep.
I think, and I'm still learning to do this myself, but I think that, you know, we're all afraid or don't want to lean on the people around us, but you know, asking for advice or asking your friends' opinions or parents or whoever, you know, I when I was pregnant, I had a lot of friends that already had kids.
Okay.
And I'd like, you know, every once in a while have a question, I'd ask them, and I felt like such a burden. But now, like, my best friend just had a baby a couple days ago, and
exciting.
At the baby shower, she was asking me questions, and I felt like, oh my gosh, like, you know, maybe she'll learn something from me. So, like, you're not a burden. You know, people, they want to share their experiences and their advice and their favorite kind of diapers, and you know, people want to be helpful, and you're not, you know, asking questions isn't a burden. So
it's not a burden, and you're not weak.
Right.
And you're not the only one that's wondering.
We don't all need to be reinventing the wheel with every baby that comes along.
There's been so many billions.
Yes. Like, why not ask?
Yes,
ask
somebody
questions.
knows.
Right.
Yeah. And they might not even have all the right answers.
Right.
But
and
it
it's
gives
all
you
trial and error.
Yeah. Gives you a place to start, makes you feel like, okay, like, I'm not the first person to go through this.
Right.
and there are supports and resources, and so I agree with that. And the grace thing for sure. We've talked about this. I think it's come up most episodes, just that you're not going to do it right. You don't. I mean, this is the experience. This is the adventure.
Right.
And you have to have grace with yourself. You have to be able to forgive yourself. But it is important to try to learn from those mistakes
and
or
just when you get them
missteps.
figured out, they change because they're always growing too, right?
Yes, and you're growing too as a mom. So, so yeah, I think, you're doing your best, and it's okay to lean on people. It's okay to be wrong. And
I agree.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is you got to keep showing up. Got to keep showing up, even on those days when it's like so hard. So. Okay, anything else before we go?
No, this
okay,
is fun.
This has
Thanks.
been so fun. Thank you for coming on. Yeah, thanks for being my first duo to come on.
Sure.
I appreciate that. Okay, so remember to keep your perspective, but don't forget to step into someone else's like we have today. Be resilient, continue to show up every day for yourself and your kids, and pursue your goals, whatever those might be. And maybe it's just one time a week that you're setting aside some time to do that. And then don't forget that you're in a community of about 2 billion people, so you're never alone. And hopefully these shows are helpful and supportive in that. Thank you.